I am recording. Okay, good. Okay, hi everybody. So it is 7:03, and this is the Lake Wyola Stormwater Erosion Taskforce. And let's just, for Tom's sake, call out our names and we are then present. So I'm Jennifer Wallace, I'm here. Oh, I know I can vote for Bob Douglas. I mean, not vote for him, but he is here. He just can't be speaking.
Yeah.
So Bob Douglas is here. Jim Moore.
Joe's
here. Tom's here. And I expect we'll get Charlene and Eric eventually, but not right now. But keep your eye out for them, Tom. You can add them when they...
unless you made me host, I can't see if people are asking.
Okay, I'll let you know.
Just
yeah,
so you know.
I'll let you know. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So then we will call this meeting to order. And first item of business is to review and approve the minutes that Tom, our Minuteman, has sent to us all. And any additions, changes, issues, or anything with the minutes that anybody can identify? They look good to me.
That's the March 20th minutes, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so without any anyone bringing anything up, can we have a motion to approve these minutes?
I move to approve.
And I'll move to, I can move to second things, right?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, okay, I'll move to second. Joe's saving his voice, but he is here.
Okay.
Okay, good. So now a couple of updates. And I
Is
think
everyone an aye just to get it verbal?
Oh yeah, we should have aye. Okay.
They don't mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm an aye. Bob thumbs up.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Say your name.
That's cool. That was Jim and Joe both said aye. Jen, you're an aye.
I'm an aye. I'm looking at a text here that I have from Charlene, who is trying to get back on. So let's say all others are here. Try again. I'll just try again without video, I'll say. And maybe she'll be okay. Okay. Oh, here she is. Admit. Okay, there she is.
Hi, Charlene.
Okay, we can't hear you, Charlene.
You froze for a minute and then I lost you. And then it said something about my internet connection, but we're good to go.
Okay, good. And if it freezes again, or looks like it is, if you get a weak internet message, you could just turn your video off, and that sometimes allows you at least to participate audio.
Okay, sounds good. Sorry about that.
Well, you're right on cue, because I was going to talk a little bit about the association meeting, but let's first start with GZA. So we had talked at our last meeting about expanding the GZA estimate and proposal to include the geomorphic study up at Fisk Brook. This is something that that LWAC has really wanted us to do, and the FERCOG rep said there really wasn't anything in the science that would say one way or the other to do it or not to do it. And I asked the GZA person, Rosalie, who we met with, if she could just give a ballpark of what it would look like if the geomorphic study was included in their proposal. And she said it would add $7,000. So she did a revised proposal, which now is our final proposal from them, unless something changes again. And the total for that now is $80,700. So I have met with the select board and conveyed to them our endorsement of GZA as as the engineering firm that looked like it was well positioned to do this work. And the town has worked with GZA on other projects, and they are considering that to be the firm that we would like to use. The proposal asks for a commitment from the town within 6 months. So there is some wiggle room there. And perhaps it could be extended. The town's process for accepting the proposal, I think, is going to be very much related to this application that we're applying for funding from the Rural Development Fund. And that will be the next on my list in just a minute. So that's where we stand with GZA. And our next steps with them are going to be related to the Rural Development Fund application. So I'll be back with GZA momentarily.
May I ask a quick question, please?
Yes.
Even though it might not matter from what you just said, what would the 6 months be currently? Like, is it from now or is it from 2 months ago?
It's probably from the date of their proposal. So let me just double check what that date is. Hold on, I just have to go into my folder here.
Okay.
Wrong folder. Sliding you all around. Okay, so the final proposal was dated March 11th.
Oh, pretty recent, about a month ago. Okay,
Yeah.
so.
So you can count the months from that.
Okay, thank
you. So any other questions on GZA at the moment? I will forward to you their final proposal so that you can see the timeline and the way that they've broken up the tasks and the way that the geomorphic study fits in with the H&H study. You'll see that they're done. Several of the steps are done concurrently, so it's not like they'll wait. It's actually they subcontract the geomorphic study out to a different engineering firm. So which they'll supervise this other firm. So they'll be able to proceed alongside each other rather than waiting for one to be finished before the other can start. Jim.
I'm sorry to be hazy on this, but what is the product of the geologic?
Right.
Do we get a list of suggestions or a
Yep.
plan? Okay.
Yeah, there'll be a memorandum that identifies what the landform situations are there currently, how they would expect them to be impacted by major modeled out storm events of the future, what the repercussions would be downstream from all these beaver dams. And we would get a report of existing conditions and recommended potential mitigation measures. And I think there's one other kind of deliverable on that.
Okay, so we get to say, gee whiz, Great Pines has always been a pain. Could you come up with maybe a new solution for what's going on there?
Well, okay, so we're talking about two different things. So what I just mentioned to you was their analysis of the Fisk Brook area.
Oh, okay.
What's happening with the engineering firm, which is H&H, is exactly what you're talking about. I mean, they're going to be looking at, in a more comprehensive way, at the drainage systems that we've already identified. And they're going to be wanting our involvement with them in pinpointing where these are in real space, right? So they have like a site reconnaissance component. They're going to do modeling out based on what they're seeing and what their projections might be for, I don't know, water volume and 100-year storms and things like that. And then they will be producing lists of what they call mitigation measures for these particular sites, as well as schematic designs and conceptual approaches and all kinds of things that would be our next steps to approaching a funding source for construction funds to implement these things. Oh, and they'll also recommend the best management practices for these particular sites.
Okay.
They also have a grant writer on staff. And they also have, other consultants that are part of their whole package to be offering advising to their clients about, how to implement their next steps. It's a pretty good proposal. It's not just, it seems like a whole package of services.
Great. Thank you.
And you'll see that when you see the proposal. So where we are with the Rural Development Fund is that I have been working on a draft of that application, and that will get passed off to the new town administrator, whose name is Haley Boynton. In fact, I met with her for the first time today and briefed her on all of the work that's been done so far, and have given her tons of materials, both from FERCog and the Rural Development Fund itself has criteria and guidelines. I went to one of their webinars. I'll have a virtual office visit with the Rural Development Fund representatives next week to clarify a few outstanding questions. So, and also our two FERCog people are reviewing the draft right now. I am going to be traveling abroad from April 30th until May 25th. The application is due on June 4th. So that gives it like a 10-day window to finalize things. And Tom has agreed to be our task force liaison to the town as they work out how to flesh out this application. I will also send to you the draft. I have two more little fine points I need to work on in the draft. And at the same time, I send that to the town administrator. I'll send it to you all so that you all have that draft too and can see where we're headed with this fund. The Rural Development Fund is interested in, I don't know how interested they are in lake quality, in sedimentation, and a lot of the things that we're interested in. However, they are interested in public safety. They're interested in climate resiliency. They're interested in flooding, and they're interested in public safety on roads and road improvements to improve public safety. So this application is definitely slanted to fit into that groove. So if when you see it, you don't see, well, like, what about all these discharge points? And what about all this, unloading of sediment into the lake? Well, I hope it's not absent, but it's definitely the proportion of things about road safety and flooding and sediment are shifted a little bit for this purpose.
But the resilience should capture that.
The resilience should capture it. So, so that's in the works. And I just want to make a note to myself that IOU, GZA, and draft. And I'll be meeting with Tom to pass all this information off to him so he has it as well. Then I met with, so the rural development application guidelines say that applications are more competitive if they have a 10% match from the applicant. And so with Charlene's help, I approached the Lake Wyola Association about their openness to sharing this 10% grant with the town. So, and they said yes. Yay. So the Lake Wyola Association is going to write a letter of support indicating their support for this project and their commitment to participate in the matching funds. And Charlene, do you want to add anything else into that?
Jen did a very nice presentation to the Lake Wyola board and gave the specifics that were important for them to hear. And after the presentation, we had a discussion and there were two motions made. The first motion was to first write the letter of support, which was unanimously accepted by the members that were there. And one request that was made during that time was if Jen, you could bullet like major ideas that we could put in that letter of support. And if you forward them to me, I'll take care of them. That would be
Okay.
helpful.
I'm going to work on that tomorrow afternoon, I hope. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then the second motion was regarding the amount of money we could promise. And that was a motion was made for $4,000.50. I think if I recall, we rounded up the 80,700 to 81,000. That's where that particular number came from. But in the discussion, that money will be there as long as the town also gives their 5%. So it's contingent on the town agreeing. Otherwise, it's useless
Got it.
because they need 10% and we really can't do 10%. So
You couldn't even apply. You guys, the Lake Wyola Association can't really even apply, period. It has to be
okay.
through the town, but
So
yeah.
that motion was also unanimous. So you've got the
Fantastic.
full support of the Lake Wyola Association. And the other request they had, and I hate to keep putting more work on you because you're certainly doing so much of it. We have a nice Lake Wyola newsletter that we put online and distribute usually at the end of spring. Art Keen puts it together for us. And because this is a new project, which obviously involves the lake, would you be willing to write up? It doesn't have to be a detailed piece of information, but again, the highlights of what has happened and transpired. And if you want to send it directly to Art, that's great because he cuts and pastes it. And do put your name to it because you want to get credit for authoring it. Or you can send it to me and I'll get it to him, whichever works easiest for you. And then he puts it in the newsletter. But he has to get that. I think he's hoping to get it out soon. So again, it's a matter of as fast as you can do that one is. Because
Yeah,
that
that's
came
going
up
to
at
be, see, what's going to be hard for me, and I think you may have glitched out at this point, but so next Wednesday, so that's less than a week from now, I'm leaving for a month.
okay. Well, do
So
you want? I can
it'll
try
be
to put
really
some-
hard, I think, given the application,
Yeah.
where my focus is on really getting those materials to the town. It might be hard for, I can't imagine it. Not that it can't occur, but I can't imagine it. If I'd be better, if you wanted, based
I
on,
can try it. Why don't I?
you
If
can
you don't,
send it to me and I'll just give it a look over.
that would be great because I don't want to put any erroneous information in there. So
Yeah.
I'll try to write something up. And when we just got back from Florida yesterday, so I just paid all my bills. I'm so tired.
Oh, yeah, right.
But I'll try to get it to you by Saturday or Sunday. Will
That's
that
good.
work?
Yeah, that's good. That would be very helpful. And I can, tweak that a little bit or not, or whatever.
Okay, so you have two motions that moved the project
Yay.
forward.
Yeah, unanimous too. I'm thrilled.
Yes.
And for all of us here, here's one thing that I think is just one of the most awesome things about that and this, which is, one of the premises of this whole thing and going to the town with it was to get all the stakeholders, at the table and begin to work together and not let the fact that roads are owned by different entities be the obstacle to dealing with water troubles that care nothing about who owns what roads or hillsides, and there are individual homeowners that are involved with some of these properties too. And our education component will start to address that, I think. So the idea that we can, and actually the town administrator said that to me today when I said that the association had voted to contribute half of this match, that's just a spectacular point in the favor of what we're doing here, you know, that not only is it a systems wide, and FERCog said this too, it's not only a systems wide approach to thinking about how to think about this water and how to treat the issues, but it's a systems wide approach to the problem solving and the planning that goes into doing something about this water. And I don't think any of us really think much successfully can be done without a systems-wide approach, both geographically and institutionally. So I think we're really on a good footing here, and I think it's good footing for potential fundraising in the future that these groundwork is being laid.
So Jen, will you be hearing from the select board or does that go to their town meeting for a vote?
It won't have to because the amount
Is under
that
5,000, right?
is under whatever their town meeting threshold is, right?
So will they let you know directly they have voted that at one of their meetings so that
She's going to
we
be,
know?
yeah, they're going to be meeting. I don't know if they'll put that for a vote on Tuesday, but it will be at some subsequent select board meeting. Haley, the town administrator, has all this now and needs to be in touch with them.
So you'll get back to George to say, let him know, because then we'll know at our next meeting to.
Yeah, and you know what, none of this, we have to find out if we're approved for this match, and that's
Oh,
not going to
before we
happen
can
till
do anything.
October.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's no rush on the
But they
money.
do have to, you know, when they submit the application, it has to certify that the funds are secure, and it has to certify where the funds are coming from and all of that.
Okay. All right.
Also, Joe Comerford's office is saying they'll write a letter of support for the project. FERCog will write a letter of support for the project too.
Okay.
I think that's it on the Rural Development Fund. Oh, well, the main thing too is, and I said this to the town administrator, I said, well, we won't be able to work with GZA in any formal sense until that proposal has been accepted by the town, meaning signed off on, and we have a contract with them. And I don't think the town is going to sign off on that until they find out if they got the grant.
Right.
And that wouldn't be till October. However, today we discussed, and I think they've already started talking to the town attorney, that there might be a way to do a memorandum of understanding between the town and GZA to do some legwork and consult with each other around how to get started, or how to raise funds in case the grant doesn't go through, in advance of actually signing and accepting their proposal for that particular work. So do you understand what I mean? That if we have a memorandum of understanding, we can consult with GZA, but they are not conducting the engineering study until the grant funding is secured, which maybe it'll be secured from the Rural Development Fund and maybe it won't. If it's not, then somehow we try to raise $80,700 from one source or another. So we really want this rural development thing to go through. Tom.
Thanks. Oh, I'm not muted. Do you know if there's anything after we submit it in June between then and October? Like, do we find out any news, or is it kind of just a long silent period? Are there steps of notification?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it's a long silent period, but
Just to know what to deal with patience-wise. And
yes, I will. I'm writing that on my note to them when I meet with them next week. Like, it would be great if there were like tiers, like we made the short list or something, you know.
that was one thing I wondered about, or didn't make it. Gosh
Yeah.
forbid. Or
Yeah, that's a
just
good,
any sort of steps that might be allowed for us to know along the way.
yeah, that's a good one.
So be it either way.
All right, so if there aren't any other questions on that, then I can move on to the next agenda item. All right, so I wanted to try and
I
find,
think
oh,
Bob has a
Bob's
question.
hand is up.
I
Yeah,
apologize. Yes, I did have a quick question related to letters of support. Is that something you would want a letter of support from the Conservation Commission for?
it's a good question because I don't know whether letters of support, so the town is applying. And then does the town's own committees write a letter of support? It's possible. I thought also that LWAC has been way behind this, and especially way behind the fluvial geomorphic study. So let me ask that question of Haley, whether letters of support from town committees are useful.
Great. And if they are, let me know, and I can just bring that to the commission.
Good. And even though my time seems like it's disappearing quickly by April 30th, there is a whole month and even a little bit more before the application is due. Jim. Can't hear you. You're muted, Jim.
Okay, there we are.
There you go.
No, it's just that my dog was barking, so I
Mhm.
muted that. I think given that the Conservation Committee would probably need to sign off on a lot of our activities, or,
Not just yet,
intervention.
not for an engineering study.
No, but for going ahead with any actual,
Oh, sure. Yeah, eventually. Yeah.
that it would be nice for them to at least in spirit or, submit some letters saying that they're behind this sort of activity. I know they can't approve any hypothetical activity, but at least to know in principle that they'd support anything
Right.
dealing with sedimentation or.
And I think also there, as we get to public education, I think Concom support knowing that we have a big public education and outreach component because their interest is in individuals knowing what the impacts of their alterations are on the wetland habitat. So you raise a good point there. So I'm going to talk about that and LWAC too. Okay, good. All right, so I wanted to try and finalize, so back to our charge, which was to produce a report for the select board in June. I think we're right on track to be able to accomplish that. We've done a lot of sort of looking at things related to management and maintenance, and I had one of those 4 o'clock in the morning things like, this is so dense and hard to read and you can't really even follow it, and what good is it going to be? So I started, and I'm not fluent in any way with making tables or anything like that, but I sent you all a kind of different way of presenting the management and maintenance recommendations. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it. I could screen share it now. I don't want to go over it with a fine-tooth comb because we keep delaying the public education component, and I want to make sure we get to that.
Mhm.
But I could give us a quick look at it and see if you think this format is good. And then you could submit comments to me in writing about how you'd like to add things, subtract things, or if someone's a wizard on making tables, they could take it over altogether and put this into a table form. But why don't I share it on my screen right now? And I'll see if I can find it. Here we go. So I made this table and then I printed it and drew this line down the center because I didn't know how to draw lines on a table. So what I tried to do is to just show tasks that happen at different points in time, to show the responsible parties, and sometimes the responsible party extends between both parties, right? So they're both responsible for those things. And then in other cases, only one party would be responsible for it. So that's what's happening here. So for example, in spring and fall, these 3 items are done by both entities, the town and Lake Wyola, whereas this one is just done by the town.
That helps that you say that. Thank you.
Likewise, all of these are just done by the Lake Wyola Association. And these are more general, right? This is done by both parties, this one just by the town and this one by the association. So I'm not saying that this is in any way finalized, but it takes what was in that other document and tries to condense it. And for me, it's a more effective way to present the information than page after page, color coded and stuff like that. But if you all felt like this, okay, this is a workable format and we can use something like this in our final report. 2 things, we can use something like this in our final report with the select board, and we can use this in our eventual coordination with the highway department in talking about management and maintenance. And you'll see number 1 here on the list is a review of an operation and management plan that identifies projects for the year. And I believe that each of these parties should have such a plan, and that those components should go into a master plan for operation and maintenance of drainage systems around the lake. That should be sort of 2 sub-plans which are presented as a total plan. And that's, again, the beginning of creating this working unit where both institutions are working together, but in their own separate, kind of like, I had a friend once who said her ideal of a perfect relationship was 2 canoes on the same river. I've never been in a canoe with a partner of mine where we've still been together at the end of the canoe trip. No, I'm just kidding. So I don't know oh, and then there's a second component. So these are more generalized tasks, things that would happen every year and at every periodic points in the year. And then there would be another piece that are specific recommendations, and it would identify who's responsible for those. Here's the one: develop a coordinated town and Lake Wyola management plan. This one, Lake Wyola to rename its roads committee and expand its mission. The highway department assesses ditches across from Great Pines to improve their condition and design. Now, these are identified by FERCog, right?
Just excuse me, but on that number 3, opposite lake as well, that last weekend during the rain and thaw and all of that, there was water coming out onto the road from the ditch on the west side of Locks Pond, right around lake. So that
right around lake. Oh,
Lake Drive.
Okay, all right. So
that
from Great Pines and
another
Lake
location
Drive.
there where the ditch was not holding the water; it was coming out onto the road.
Okay. So, and again, this is by no means, comprehensive, but it also gets to some granular level of detail that's different than the more general tasks that are identified on something like this. Because, for example, maintaining these turnouts on Great Pines, that's going to happen all the time because they're always going to get filled in. Same with Shore and Pine. But looking specifically at ditches across from Great Pines to improve their condition and design, or there's another one here on King Road and Stebbins, that may not be done. That might be a one-time shot. Same thing with cleaning these ditches on Wendell Road. These are what were identified by FERCog as immediate needs. Something like this is useful for both parties to prioritize what they're going to do in any given year too.
Okay, can I bring up a granular item?
Oh, yeah.
That opposite Laurel Straits on Windle Road, the culverts there can be where we had that problem of water
Oh,
coming.
Watson Straits, Watson Straits.
Watson Straits, yeah, it depends on what map you look at, but yeah. The water comes down that road and cuts through the woods and makes its way down to shore. So if it could be intercepted back up by, you know, that culvert right at the road opening being shut down and carrying water a little bit further downhill, further north, I guess. But again, that's a granular concern, but certainly creates problems when it happens.
Right, so some of these too, sorry, I try to get this, some of these too, I saw some things in the FERCog report that by rights, I felt the H&H study should identify what should be done rather than any of us saying, meaning us on our task force or the highway department saying, here's how we'll do it. I think we're yielding to the engineers to look comprehensively at things and then propose solutions. So I don't know, Jim, whether this is something that you think we would point the engineers to, or this is something that someone, either the highway department or association or both, would work on right away.
Well, it's one of those issues where water off right there at the opening of Watson Straits, the road, within 30 feet of heading downhill, cuts off the road and down the hill to shore. And that's the location where I don't remember the name of the individual, but the
Right.
house had water coming right next to their foundation. So, and I know George has tried to address it, but it'd be nice if the town could simply close down the culvert that feeds or considers closing it down. I don't know.
Okay, that's good.
Thank you.
So I leave this with you. You all have this now. I sent it today.
Did I make
And
a comment or two about it? I didn't mean to belabor it.
no, but let me just finish my
Okay.
thought here. Because we have time before we submit this to the town in the form of our report, I'm asking for two different things. One, more of these granular suggestions like the one we just got, and proofing this for clarity and so on. And two, feedback or some proposal for an alternative way to present these ongoing things that identify that these two parties are working hand in hand in their own kingdoms, but also together to take this systems wide approach. So I would also like feedback on that eventually. Doesn't have to happen now, and take a close look at it. Maybe someone with more graphic expertise than I will come up with a better solution. Tom?
Thank you. That was actually one of my points. I didn't catch you saying it so clearly until just now, but yeah, I will do my best also to think about visualizations or organizations of the document.
Okay.
Maybe back to one, maybe keep it as two, whatever. Maybe a map would be included. I don't know.
Map could be included,
Or
yeah.
some sort of visual. Oh, just one thing that came up, I think, well, we were just talking, you and Jim, maybe on these details on the two documents where it is, Watson isn't actually mentioned yet, but if Watson's was mentioned somewhere in specific maintenance, maybe an asterisk could be put next to it, or other projects that we expect the H&H study to touch on more than we expected to touch on other ones, maybe, or other items in there. Does that make sense what I mean? Because I think for some of them, we have a good idea that it will be touched on by the H&H study.
Yeah, let me just put a little asterisk here.
Kind of leaving it up to, kind of acknowledging like this is probably going to be modified or well could be after the engineers also contribute. Because some of them do seem more like now with our highway department, action could happen.
Yes, that's true. The other thing that I didn't have on this list, and I knew you had mentioned, so Tom, feel free to add that
Uh-huh.
either here at this list or on the other one that you had mentioned, issues on South Laurel, which I'm not aware of what they might be.
Okay,
We never really made it down there on our field visits.
right.
I see Joe's hand is up. Hi, Joe.
How you doing? When they do the design work, have they been told to try to do as much as they can using property that's not residential or something that's owned by the town or by the lake association?
Well,
Only because if you do a design and it all of a sudden runs into somebody's property, trying to convince that person to allow the water to go through could be an issue if they
yeah.
decide not to.
Yeah, and keep these two things in mind. One, nobody has been told anything because currently no one's working on it. You know, this is in the form of a proposal. Two, when the engineering firm gets started, they're going to be relying on us to give them all the local information that we can, including just what you just mentioned, Joe, about, and what we've talked about, town-owned properties that could be available, etc. The third thing is that they're going to be providing us with conceptual sketches. You know, they're not down to the level of where's the pipeline going to go and who has rights to that land. That's going to be a following step that we'll all need to work out. So there's going to be plenty of opportunity for us to interact with the engineering firm. And I really doubt that they're going to get to the point of making recommendations based on whether there's authorization to be on anybody's property. These are going to be big, broad sketch ideas. There'll be specific mitigation measures, but how they get implemented, I think it's going to be up to whoever receives the engineering study and begins to figure out how to implement it. But like I said, we'll have lots of opportunities to talk with them. In fact, we already have, because GZA will be the firm, but once they get started, you know, they even have in their work plan flow, you know, consultation with us. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it does. That's all. I just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure. Because
No, it's good. Yeah. Okay, so if that's agreeable with everybody, we can move on to the next thing. I'm going to turn my office lights on here. Charlene, I can hear you though. Go ahead.
Okay, just a couple of things. As everyone knows, the Lake Wyola Association functions a lot with volunteers helping maintain the roads. And then we do every year have a capital plan that comes from David Boron, which is very specific with amounts of monies and things. My question is, since the highway department has paid personnel who can be asked to do these things, so that becomes part of you know, the town's budget would cover any of those expenses. If there are things on here that maybe are beyond anything the association can agree upon, how would that get dealt with if it becomes part of the report?
Well, other people can weigh in on this. My perspective on it is that this is simply just a report to the select board. So
Okay.
no one's committing anybody to have to do anything. It's also a working document that the roads committee and the association can say, okay, well, these issues were specifically identified by FERCog, endorsed by the task force, and in any 1 year can be, we're going to prioritize these items for our work because, you know, we're on board to reduce sediment into the lake. Some of them might require additional fundraising, right? But it's not that someone's on the hook to do something it's merely like, it's a planning document and it's a working document. And Jim
Okay.
has some thoughts about how the roads committee might start to interact with this, especially in light of the fact that a lot is done by volunteers and the funding is limited. I mean, I just want to say funding has been directed mostly to dealing with the road surfaces and not comprehensive drainage studies. And if the charge of the roads committee gets expanded to include drainage, and then some projects could get prioritized from the point of view of drainage, then funding can be raised just for that one purpose by the Lake Wyola Association. Do you see what I mean?
Oh, it would have its own somewhat of a budget, but I think what would be good, Jen, this is, the second list is very specific. Do I have the task force permission to bring this to our next meeting? And let them, and Jim's on the roads committee, so he wouldn't be at this meeting, but I think it'd be great if the whole committee could see what was in that report specifically dealing with the Lake Wyola, or is it too early to do that?
Well, I'll let Jim weigh in on that too. My sense that right now it's too early because we're still fleshing out the list.
Okay.
And I don't know how the Lake Wyola Association and the Roads Committee want to do business. I mean, we're going to have this report. It's going to the select board. It's going to the Lake Wyola Association. And how you all want to do with it, that would be your business, right?
Right.
What do you think, Jim?
Okay, one quick one was something that Charlene said early on, is one of the tasks that would be great to hand over to the town is just the once a year crowning of the roads. We don't have a truck, and I believe the town does have the facility to take care of Wendell Road for sure. So that if we could reach an understanding on that, it would be great. Second thing for with Charlene's comments is, I know at one point George said that he's at least open to think about changing the name of the roads committee to, erosion in roads or something of that sort. And with that, think of expanding the mission statement of the committee. And that's something I'd hope we could, as the Lake Wyola Association, could get on fairly quickly so that we'd have a structure, a committee that could begin to address some of these issues and take on some of the nitty gritty points as it affected the association.
So Charlene, I'll ask, what
I
do you
wasn't
think?
aware of that with George. So George is because
Informally, it wasn't a vote.
oh, okay, because
It's just a conversation I had with George about it. He seemed to think that it might be a good idea. And what I'd like to do is to get, I don't have a copy of the association bylaws, I hate to say, but to get a copy of it, see what the mission of the roads committee is, and draft up something to take to the executive committee about getting ready to deal with these issues.
Because I do know we've talked at least 2 meetings about because Jen was requesting a separate committee for this,
I
and
listened in on that, so yeah.
right. And at the first meeting, and it came from a member on the committee, they just because of, unfortunately, the nature of the beast of getting people to help out on committees is easier said than done, I guess is the way I'll best put it. So rather than have another committee, then the discussion came to be, let it be a focus of the roads committee. So what George has informally said to you is maybe rename the roads committee is that what he's saying?
Well, add something like erosion in roads or something that
right.
would, and then.
So it was kind of like enlarge the charge a little bit.
Yeah.
And rename the committee.
And it would be the
Okay.
same people, but, so, because you're right, that there's a limited amount of labor on the lake,
Right.
there's the 25 people who do a hell of a lot of work, then there's another 25 that do a good bit of work, and then,
Right.
there's maybe the 50 at the bottom that sometimes do something. So that, to take advantage of the roads committee and they wouldn't necessarily be doing the work as much as coming up with this oversight and suggestions on an annual basis.
Okay.
So the
That's all I needed is
question,
clarity.
yeah, like how might Charlene, you and Jim work together to facilitate this? And the difference is here, I went back to this. So currently the roads committee subcontracts their assessment out to Dave Boron, right? Once a year,
Right.
he goes around. So what this would do is not preempt that, but add to that, whether it's Dave or members of the committee, these kinds of items like cleaning out culverts and drainage ditches, assessing winter damage to drainage, conducting fall assessment to address drainage. So I don't think Dave and George concurred. He's looking at road surfaces, getting them ready for plowing, what needs to happen. He's not looking at culverts. He's not looking at the condition of ditches, cleaning out retention ponds. So that kind of would be the role of this expanded role of the committee, is that this becomes surveillance, if you will, an assessment that's done every year and at different times of the year. So it's a little bit slightly tweaked from what the roads committee has been doing. But that's what Jim is talking about. And
Yeah.
Okay,
back
and
to your
Charlene, I'm
question.
going to be up at the lake this weekend, so there might be a chance that we could chit chat a bit about this.
Okay. Sounds
And-
good.
And,
Here.
and I think once we have this draft, the specifics and the other one finalized, and we vote to say we're cool on this and we're going to send it to the select board, of course, there isn't any reason why the association wouldn't have it and Jim wouldn't have it and his group wouldn't have it and begin to use that as a template. But I don't think it's ready to circulate yet. Does anybody? No, Jim says no. What do you say, Tom? Is this ready to circulate?
I would wait for now if possible,
Yeah.
unless it were urgent.
And Joe, do you have any feedback on that?
No, I think you did a good job with it, so I have no feedback with it.
But do
Maybe
you think
that-
it's ready to circulate, or can we take another little time to fine tune it?
Well, you already put the culverts and stuff in it that normally they don't do with the road committee.
Right.
And that'll give them a chance to start figuring out for funding for it, because trying to get people to donate to the association is another issue. So maybe that could help them.
Well, yeah, and I think that once we have something like this and it's finalized, the association can, and we would help with this, go to other entities that might be already lending money to do, smaller road improvements and things like that for the environmental purposes, if anything else. But we just need to get the list finalized and be happy with it. And maybe I'm just saying I'm not really happy with it just yet. It doesn't feel complete to me. And I think, Jim, you agree with that, right?
I do.
Yeah. So, all right. So 3 hands up. Jim,
No, I spoke.
Jim's down. Charlene, your hand is up.
Well, the only thing is, I don't know if I heard you wrong, that once it's tweaked, then it'll go to the select board, but I would feel better knowing, since Lake Wyola Association is mentioned in there, that they need to see it before the select boards,
Oh, before.
it should, well, I just think,
I was going to do it simultaneously, but
I just think if you're going to
okay.
mention it,
Yeah.
I think they need to look at it and see, here's something very simple I'm thinking of. I don't know what other things David Boren does, but maybe if he even saw the list and says, well, I could do your cult, we could at least get a price from him, or he could recommend somebody. But I don't know if he doesn't do that. So other
Oh,
people
yeah.
who are better aware of that might be able to, give better advice on that. But I just think whenever you mention an association, they need to see the document before it goes forth as the final presentation. I would feel better, because I don't
Okay.
want anyone to come back and say, Charlene, you didn't bring this, we're in
Yeah.
here, and it's a matter of courtesy, I guess.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's fine.
I'd
I have
agree
no
with
problem.
Charlene.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. Sometimes the timing it takes to get,
I know everything. I totally agree. Timing.
yeah, and that's all my,
Wow.
I mean, municipal government works slowly too. So I'm always like, let's get this done. But I made a note of it. We'll make sure it happens.
Okay, good.
Tom.
Thank you.
I guess two things actually. One, just in response to that, I'm comfortable if Charlene talks about what she's seen here tonight and everything. I'm not saying please don't share any of this. I'm just saying as a document, I think maybe we want to hold off calling it written yet. But that's just a little aside. I had a question for Jim, if it's okay. Jim, did you say that you do not have the bylaws for the Lake Wyola Association?
I don't. I know they're
Okay.
online,
If
some
you,
of them.
I was going to say, yeah, it's just lakewyola.org.
Okay, thank you.
It's at the top of the page when you go to
I
their
just need to run them
homepage.
off.
Yeah. In case you needed to know where to find them.
Okay. So now we're going to move to this next and final component of our report. I will stop sharing for 1 second. No, actually, I do have to share again. Just not this one. Okay. So this is almost entirely pulled from the FERCog report. And I have since, in sort of hanging out with this, have made a couple of other suggestions, but these are the current public outreach suggestions that were made by FERCog. And I should also share, just so you have it, I don't know if you remember, but FERCog took the town of Shutesbury and our task force as one of the locations where they are providing district local technical assistance. So as part of this, they are very interested in what they're calling capacity building among people who live around the lake and in the watershed, to understand the findings of their report, what kind of measures individuals can have, what kind of measures institutions can have to reduce sedimentation. And they are going to facilitate some education events that would be co-designed with our task force. And they'll focus on building an understanding and buy-in from everybody, the association, the town's committee, residents around the lake. And they'll do events and projects that could include PowerPoints, outreach materials, maps, demonstrations, interactions with the stream study, field walks, and other ideas. They would meet with us a few times and have these two big public events, either at Lake Wyola or online or at the library, as people suggested. So they would be a professional partner in doing this public education. So this is not included in the recommendations because it didn't exist at the time the recommendations were written, but it will get folded into those recommendations. So, and you all have this too, I think, but I don't need to be, I'll keep this available for us if we want to look at it again. And then these are the things that they have identified as public education. Identify willing landowners who'd like to work with the town or the association for placement of BMPs, would be like structural interventions on private property. For instance, like the sump drainage system at the West's house things that have to be low because of where, there are very few places where the drainage passes through publicly owned land on the way down to the lake. So in almost any case, something is going to have to involve a private property owner. So who are those owners and might they be interested? It's kind of theoretical because we don't know what these BMPs are yet, but we will when the engineering study is done. Outreach to owners of properties with driveway exits on Locks Pound Road to consider installing water bars and turnouts off their driveways into the adjacent woods. So on Locks Pound Road, looking west, there are a number of properties where water is like cascading down their driveways. If they could be brought on board as partners too, and be working to redirect some of that water before he even gets to Locks Pond Road, that would be advantageous. Property owner coordination with a drainage study group before installing systems on their own. That's a big thing. A lot of people in a power vacuum, everybody fills the vacuum with whatever they need to do to keep that water out of their house, right? But those practices aren't necessarily the most sustainable or long-lasting or even effective. And often like plugging the dike in one area ends up causing troubles in the other area. So working with homeowners to be part of a coordinated approach rather than taking action on their individual properties without knowing that there's a whole master plan at work here. Everybody is trying to work together. Joe, your hand is up.
Yeah, I was just reading some of those, and the only concern I have is that, and probably Bob could help out, a lot of those things that are written on there are part of the new Conservation Commission's bylaws that they put in. So they're going to be really involved in a lot of anything to do with the water around within so many feet of the water that goes on a person's deed.
That's right. And that's definitely, when I was looking at this list right before our meeting, I wrote down coordination with Concom is going to be crucial when it comes to anything within that wetland protection buffer zone for sure. Okay, so, Charlene, you have your hand up.
I just wondered who would be part of the drainage study group? Is that us, the task force? Or is that another group?
No, well, yeah, that's a good question. I don't know where that name came from necessarily, and I don't know how much longer us is going to be in us, because technically our charges is dissolved when we make our report to the select board. Is the drainage study group this roads erosion committee? No, because that relates just to the Lake Wyola roads. I have had initial discussions with Mark Rivers about LWAC slightly expanding their role to become kind of the middleman, I guess, in these drainage discussions, since we're trying to do a systems-wide approach between the town, the association, and surrounding homeowners. It would seem that LWAC is in a good position to be the coordinator who would oversee the plan itself and what parties are involved in doing what. I didn't know what other central organization could do all of that. And I thought LWAC, since it represents both the town and the association, might be ideal. It'd probably mean one of us becoming a member of LWAC maybe. But you raise a really good point there, Charlene. I don't think there is no such thing as a drainage study group.
Yeah.
But there does
I just worry if you have a group of lay people as this group, and then
Right.
could they possibly stop a property owner from not doing something that they may have gotten a lot of? I don't think they could, because they don't have the
No, this is
authority,
just,
but it's the way it's written. I don't know,
Okay.
before installing, it looks like they have to give permission, and I don't think that's what
Yeah,
that.
no, no, yeah, that's true. Okay, so let me just put this, I'm gonna make this in a different color. We'll figure out another way to rephrase that.
Okay, yeah, I think it's just with communication with, or something, you know, coordination.
Yeah, well, that's why I
So
use
it's their
coordination.
coordination anyway,
Yeah.
but.
But no, it doesn't want to send a message that there's any more layers of regulatory authority or
Right,
anything
because
like that.
that, right. And as Joe said, Conscom would have a lot of authority over anything that's done, especially now
Well,
that they have.
it depends on where. If it's within the buffer, the wetland buffer, which is, I think, 100 feet from the lake shore, they have everything to do with that.
Right, right.
And I don't know how much they, by law, I don't know how much they have to do with permitting us anyway, you know, if
Okay.
they're outside of the buffer zone. But we definitely have to be coordinating with them on all of this.
Right.
Education for, you know, there's a lot missing here. Like, what does education mean for boat owners or for property owners? You know, I think there are things like, well, maybe we want to suggest that a fact sheet gets created, you know, so that this is a flyer that can go in the town newsletter or the Lake Wyola Association mailings of what is sedimentation. What are the causes of sedimentation? How could actions that you're taking with your boats or your property contribute to sedimentation? What natural forces are at work in sedimentation? How does sedimentation affect your own shoreline? You know, there's a property over here across from us that, you know, basically had to apply to the Conservation Commission and the town because the silt in their little cove, they can't even, not the big cove, a little cove by the gases, they can't even get their boat out. So, you know, so what does education mean? It's not just workshops. Request to the library to host workshops. I think this will come through. I'm going to eliminate this because this is where I'm going to put FERCog. I'll just stick their things in there because that's where all that will come into play, I think. And these are all, you know, things that, interventions that people could do on their own properties. There's also, oh yeah, native plants and shrubs. I mean, it's very likely that you could get an organization, let's see, like Bay State Perennials, to come and do a workshop on native plants and shrubs and give discounts to homeowners for, you know, new plantings that would help with reducing runoff from their properties into the lake. I mean, this stuff happens all the time. So part of it is identifying the interventions and then identifying incentives for homeowners or property owners to make some of these changes. Raising awareness is a big part. How do you raise awareness? Usually you have to, you know, send the information out in a variety of different ways and consistently and regularly, right, to get the message across. We could run field trips as part of a Lake Wyola Association activity and take people to places where we can see, you know, loads of runoff and sediment running into the lake. We'll call it a sedimentation Saturday or something. Tom, you have
a sedentary Saturday?
No, it wouldn't be sedentary. Everybody would do the sediment with their boots. Anti-sedentary sediment Saturdays. Anyway, your hand is up, Tom.
Thanks. Yeah, I had a few little comments. Is the word field trip on this document?
No, I just said that.
Okay, because that was, I'm glad you said it. It was kind of among the ideas I was thinking of. And I don't see the word incentives in the document, but it was something I had written down after I had read it. Was maybe figuring out ways to incentivize people, prizes, awards, things of that nature that can be kind of somehow phrased in that nature.
Yep.
I didn't know when we wanted to get into like the details of the public events we do, but whether like things like scavenger hunts or quiz shows or knowledge tests or things like that get into it. But those are just some of the ideas I wanted to throw out now.
I love scavenger hunts.
Yeah, you know, find the blank and round
You
the
know,
lake
and who's to
somewhere.
say some of our 50-50 raffles
Mhm.
could have the proceeds go to, you know, fighting sedimentation.
Right.
I mean, who's to say that some of the funding that comes from calendars and other things one year, you know, couldn't go toward some of these sediment reduction activities.
Geo,
On the item where you mentioned boat wakes, sedimentation, lake depths, vegetation growth,
Mhm.
I don't know if it might belong in there. It seems like a phrase we use sometimes, but I don't know if we also want to avoid it sometimes for our group, but water quality. I don't, it's been unclear to me whether that's our purview or not technically with the SILT group. But I just wanted to suggest that we might include water quality somewhere.
Yep,
in
that's
what
good.
we're talking about. On the drainage study group and before installing systems and whatnot on their own, I agree, it can sound as though this is setting up some sort of permit process or whatnot, but and in terms of involving LWAC with kind of maybe being guiding and what that drainage study group is or who it is, my thoughts always go back even kind of higher up than LWAC, that the three land use permit granting authorities in town are the Board of Health, the Planning Board, and the Concom, each of whom by its charter has a representative on LWAC, because those are basically going to happen anywhere in town, but they might happen in the Lake Wyola area. So it might be important at some point along the line to go all the way to the step of just even notifying or involving maybe somehow the planning board and board of health beyond the Concom and the LWAC per
Yep, I think
se.
that's good.
And it might even be required at some point down the line, depending what the H&H studies and what implementations come up. Road work to me all of a sudden brings to mind planning board almost more than anything. So just wanted to throw those other groups out there, the planning board and the board of health besides Concom and LWAC.
I think that's really important. And I added community preservation because they have funding.
Right, they have the money.
They have money. So, you know, it's possible that if, you know, we had projects, education projects, or some of these incentivizing projects that needed funding, that we could go to community conservation to receive some of that funding. So this is all exactly right to bring the town and the association and people who are living around the lake to begin to see their tasks as the same tasks, right? The same priorities, but then implemented separately depending on their own organizations and what those organizational goals and missions are. I think I got, oh yeah, I wondered about, I know FERCOG discourages impervious surfaces. And I know that a lot of property owners have put in impervious asphalt surfaces to keep water away. That's the kind of education that I think we need to begin to identify as being perhaps a solution for an individual family, but a bigger problem for the wider ecosystem.
well, some of the, oh, I didn't raise my hand. Some of the problems driveways that have gotten paved because around the lake, you're limited to your leach fields, and most of the leach fields are by the road. And they found out that some of the water, if it drains into the leach field is only designed to take in so much water. So you got to be really careful of how the road itself is crowned to make sure it doesn't overflood the leach field. Because a couple of houses that I know of that had their driveways paved because the system's only designed for so much water. So it wouldn't do good having it so the water drains into it.
Right. So
side of it is good. On either side of it's good, but not actually into the leach field itself.
right. So that's where it is, you know, I think there's look, no one wants to have to involve all these regulatory agencies in signing off on things that they want to do on their properties. But if right now we're the organization that's taken this sedimentation issue and tried to elevate it to a different position than just on a bookshelf someplace. And those kind of factors are real. You can't be making changes that are going to drown out someone's leach field. But then you can't be putting in asphalt and asphalt berms everywhere if it's going to be creating other problems too. So that's where the coordinated approach of how to handle these seemingly competing priorities come into play, I think. So it's a delicate balance, but I think we do need some coordination between all these different agencies and parties.
Well, COMCOM is in the last 2 years have added a lot of vegetation and pervious driveways. They've already had that. They have that already in bylaws. When it works, and most of the time when people are going to pave, they go to them and say, "This is the reason." So they present it to them. So it's that part of it is all working.
Okay, good.
I know it's in their bylaws.
Yeah, good. I wanted to say something about the crowning too. Oh, the idea of the town who has the equipment to maybe take over the crowning of the Lake Wyola roads. That's a decent suggestion. Now, Dave said he needed a new grader and the select board didn't fund it this year. I was to put a vote for it with the select board. And I said to Dave that day, yeah, I'm going to talk to the select board tonight about, backing your request for a grader. He goes, they already voted it down. So that doesn't mean it can't be voted up next time. And maybe there's maybe there's some kind of deal that can be made with the town in relationship with them taking on the grading of the roads at least. Who knows? But these are problems that can get solved as we begin to roll up our sleeves and try to dive into these recommendations, I think that's a decent suggestion. I don't think the town will like it. Eric's not here. He said he thought they should buy the roads for $1. So I don't know what's better. $40,000 grader or $1 for all these roads that then you have to be in charge of.
Actually, the grader's a lot more than that.
It was
really?
400,000.
Oh, 400. Oh, maybe I missed a zero. I thought he said it
Okay.
was 40,000.
No.
Well, that's a lot of money. Seems like towns should share this big equipment. They share police departments. Why can't they share this big equipment? But anyway, obviously this has already been improved and expanded in good ways just in this conversation. So maybe in view of the fact that we're trying to stay on schedule with our report to the select board, if like the maintenance stuff, you all could take a look at this and make suggestions to me of what you think should be included. We won't need to meet again on it necessarily until, right before it's finalized. But I will finalize. I'll just throw in everybody's suggestions and try and get them in a coordinated fashion. And we can look at it again. Rather than take up our meeting time, on individual lines and stuff like that. If you're in agreement with that. Two hands are up, Joe's and then Charlene's.
Well, I just wanted to say first, thank you. You did a great job with this.
Well, I took everything from the FERCog report.
But Still put it all together, so I just wanted to give.
Okay, thank you.
And Jen, when are you presenting our final report to the select board? That's in June, you said?
Yeah, I think they said June 18th. I have a crazy travel schedule this summer, so June 18th, I really am going to be just returning from visiting my son and his family in Oregon. So I'm going to ask them whether I can have another week and present it to them on the 25th And I am going to miss the Lake Wyola Association meeting on the 14th, but I think between Mark Rivers and one of you guys, you'll be able to give an update to them on what we're up to. But I'll make sure the select board will give us another date. I'm sure it might even be in July, and we'll make sure that all the relevant parties have a chance to look at this report and sign off on it and endorse it before it goes to the select board.
All about quality.
Did that answer your question, Charlene?
Yes, I just wondered how much time we had to build on this, what we saw tonight.
Well,
That's
it would
all.
be good. Let's see, I'm looking at the calendar. I'll be back on the 26th. And I have the application to the Rural Development Fund is due on the 4th, but I'm hoping that that doesn't have a lot on my shoulders anymore by the time I get back. So let's say that we have until, if you're okay with it, say until like the 27th of May.
Okay,
That's a good long time for both documents, right? For the maintenance document and the education document.
right. I'm just trying to think, our Lake Wyola meeting, our next one is, oh my gosh. Let me just quickly look in my minutes from, I think it's May 13th, but I'm not sure. One sec.
Because no one wants to pay a speaking fee. The big guy's apparently asking for 300 grand.
Where is it?
5 staffers just to
Yeah,
send those
our next Lake Wyola meeting is May 13th. So,
How about this? I have an idea.
for his anti-oligarch.
Since these are, I mean, they are rough, but if you are content with something rough and our committee is okay with something rough, I think that I could feel comfortable you bringing these two things, the public education and the maintenance stuff, as it exists now with a little bit of tweaking from what we just did tonight as drafts.
right,
And then, because it's true, I mean, if there are substantial sort of negative feelings that the association has about any of this, then we would want to iron that out before we went to the select board.
right.
And if they feel like there's something glaringly missing, likewise. So I think there's an advantage to supplying you with some drafts that you can show them. And knowing that I'd like to get whatever feedback could happen in time for us to draft that report. So, let's just say by the 4th of June or the last part of May.
Do you want to give us a date to get you things so that the tweaking can be sent out to all of us, so I could have that for May 13th? Because right now, people
Yeah.
might want to change what we've looked at.
Right. Well, if you want me to change something,
Oh,
then
it
that-
doesn't matter to me. Yeah,
no, but I'm just saying, if I'm going to tweak anything before I leave, I would need it, like this weekend, probably.
oh, okay.
Yeah. But if this is just like things that should be included in a draft. The final version, I wouldn't need anything until, say, even the 4th of June, the last part of May or the 4th of June, but you want to bring something to them by the 13th.
Right.
So see, I just won't be here to work on it from the 30th until the 13th. And I have other things that I'm doing with that application that are time consuming too. So I'm just feeling crunched, I guess, as far as how to do that.
Well, I mean, as long as it's all right with everyone, if nothing more is going to change on what we've seen, I can take those and just really encourage them to understand it's truly a draft.
Mhm.
And that if there's anything glaring in there that they want to be brought back, then we could, because it looks like the end of June might be the time the information is going to be shared with the select board.
Right.
Then that would give you more time and just leave it the way it is. Or if there's anything more in there that you want to just change quickly and send it along to me, then I'll take whatever the latest version is from you.
Okay, so let's say this, we'll take a vote on this, or, loose vote. I'm gonna clean all of this up. There's 3 documents. I'm gonna clean them up a little bit. And then, and I'm not gonna add anything like brand new that wasn't discussed tonight. If anything's added brand new, Jim might be adding it from his end, but he's got the expertise and we probably wouldn't bother with that anyway. And I'll just clean these 3 documents up so I feel pretty comfortable talking about them with anybody as drafts. And I can get those to you before I leave on the 30th.
Okay, that's great.
Now,
You might
Does it-
not be sleeping, Jen.
does anyone have any objection to that plan?
I would add that
Tommy is here.
they're kind of public at this point anyway.
Yeah.
Had this meeting and you're having shared them with us on email, so I'm not quite exactly sure of the distinction we're making in terms of sharing it with anyone. We've kind of just shared it with the public in one way, and I'm very comfortable with them being shared, especially with the caveat that these are drafts. I think it's all pretty common sense at that point.
Because maybe that.
Yeah, no, I think I'm a writer, so I just don't like to put stuff out in the world too much if it's really, not up to some kind of invisible standard I hold in the back of my
Oh, I
mind.
hear ya. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but
I'm like,
it's not trying to
I
keep
want to
it-
say, oh wait, can we wait to format it in a more pleasingly visual
Yeah,
way? But like,
right,
that's
right.
not going to change the content. So
Yeah, no.
I'm comfortable with the draft forms being shared now.
Okay, so no objections to that? Okay, so that's done, Charlene. I will get you
Okay,
something
thank you.
before I leave. Okay, and Joe, your hand was up.
And neither is AOC.
I forgot to take it down, that's all.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, good. So then the only other thing we have is to talk about our next meeting date, which I am hoping we can do on either May 29th or June 5th.
Can start talking like normal people.
You also notice. these
Someone's television is on. I wish I knew what they were
Ed,
watching.
that's ours. Ed, can you turn, Ed, can you turn the TV, or I'll mute, never mind.
Can do either day.
We'll wait to hear. Joe, can you make it either the 29th or the 5th?
Yeah, I can make it either day. But
Okay.
are we better wait until the 5th? Because we're really waiting for more information to come in, right?
Well, maybe, I don't know what more information we would need. The town is gonna file that application on the 4th, so I'm thinking I won't be jet lagged on the 29th, but the 5th is okay. How about you, Jim?
Either date, fine.
Okay, and what about you, Bob?
Thank you. Because you specialize in dental implants.
Unfortunately, I have the Shutesbury Concom meeting on the 5th.
Oh, bummer. All right.
You could have the meeting without me though. You're like,
I'm trying to decide how, I think it's going to be a pretty important meeting because that's going to be, unless we also have a second meeting in June to sign off on the report items.
would
Well,
the
so-
following week, the Thursday, June, I guess it would be the 12th.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That's my problem because I have to go to Oregon.
Okay.
I think we can do it the 29th, right?
Yep.
All
I
right.
believe I'm free the 29th.
All right, if everyone can do it on the 29th, let's shoot for the 29th. We'll get ourselves organized around the the components of this final report and be happy with what we're going to send to the select board. We would have gotten the feedback from the Lake Wyola Association at that point. And then we'll probably have to have one more meeting in June before we can send the thing off to the select board. Later in June, it'll probably be like, can we meet the 26th of June?
Yep, I can.
That'll probably be our last meeting. I mean,
Yeah.
in our present configuration, we'll see what they want to do with it.
26th is good.
Okay. All right. So we're going to have two meetings, one on the 29th and one on the 26th.
The 26th is June, right?
Correct. And
That looks clear to me.
okay, good. In the meantime, there, sometime in June, we'll probably have planning to do with FERCog if they're going to run these public education sessions and all of that. Okay, so 8:33, not too bad. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I give you a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Okay. Aye, Wallace, aye.
Douglas, aye.
Galinsky, aye.
Moore, aye.
Salvador, aye.
Aye. So, I love you guys. Oh, I'll turn off the recording.
It's gonna get mushy.
Yeah, it's gonna get
Stop
mushy.
sharing the screen too. Oh, there you have
No,
it.
wait a
Stop
minute. All right,
recording now.
stop share. Okay, and now I'm gonna